you, Guillermo, for being here. I just want to let you guys know that we have to wrap, in 25 minutes. And Guillermo won't be able to sign anything, but he was very kind to leave some posters. There'll be some posters for you guys outside.
I already signed a bunch of posters.
And when you were thinking about black and white, this is not something that you just fix and pose. You were thinking about when you were making the film. So I wonder if you could talk about the choices that you made, thinking like black and white.
From the beginning, look, I wanted to shoot Shape of Water black and white. They would have given me $3 million less, so I shot it in color. And this I didn't even dare. So we started, and Dan Lauston and I said, let's do a black and white film in color. And what does that mean? It means that we kept the ratio of contrast very much in the expressionist film and also in the classical studio lighting, 3-point lighting. And we thought that's the layer of the highlights and the deepest shadows. And then we're gonna add the color on top. So it was already that layer there. And when I was a kid, I was a PA in a movie that Gabriel Figueroa, the greatest cinematographer in Mexican history, he photographed it. And I remember him telling me, look, if you want to keep the midtones in a black and white, you got to go with greens and reds and golds and pinks, which I hate pinks, so there's no pinks. But I already knew that it was going to look good. I didn't try anything until the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit, stopped the movie for 6 months. We cut everything we had shot until then, which was all the second half. And then in the middle of cutting that, my choice was after 4 months, it was Uber Eats or something else. Obviously I chose Uber Eats a lot of times. But I started watching the movie in black and white on my computer, on the grayscale filter on the Macintosh. And I thought, Jesus, if we just watch a couple of things, the contrast ratio, if we light the fog a little more in the night scenes, and I just started to think about those things. And then when I was brave enough, I showed it to Kim Morgan first, my wife, and then I showed it to Bradley, and then I showed it to Dan Lauston, the cinematographer. And he said, no. I said, no, yeah, we should try it. I mean, I thought, we're not gonna get away with it. But we could do a secondary release in black and white because I knew how good it looked. And Searchlight, fortunately, they said, finish it both ways and we'll let you put it out a little later in black and white and eventually on Blu-ray in black and white. And I went, that's all I wanted. So that's what it is. A different weight in black and white. I think the storytelling, the camera, the weight, the moral weight, the grittiness of the movie has a different feel in black and white. And you can see everything that we did to make it feel like a classic movie from the 40s. It plays much better.
Yeah, I feel like in this one I noticed this note more. The practical lights play a very interesting role, sort of like the flashlight that Bradley's character has at the beginning.
Yeah, always, yeah.
So I wonder if you could talk about, those choices.
Yeah, we call it self-gaffering, which means the actors illuminate each other. And I started doing it on Mimic. There was an incredibly difficult shot that was not working. It was Charles Dutton comes to the door of the subway car. I says, let me in. And Jeremy Northam is on the other side of the door. And it was a horrible shot. And I said, this is not working. And then I gave them flashlight and said, light yourself and light each other. And all of a sudden, I went, that's the solution. And so every time an actor has a lighting device, he becomes a gaffer.
That you mentioned Mimic, I recently spoke to Tamara, your production designer, and she referenced the cross, and I wondered if that was sort of like a nod or an Easter egg to Mimic on this one.
Well, look, every movie I do relates to all the movies I've done, in every way. And I felt, this is a little callous, but I felt me on Mimic was the gig being thrown in the alley. It was a horrible experience with the kind Weinstein brothers. So I felt like that. So it was an internal. Until this very moment, it was an internal joke. You ruined it. No, but also the idea is Jesus doesn't save any of these guys. It's another swindle, you know. Religion, the American dream, psychology, or the tarot, they are all somewhat swindles here and there, you know. Not every time, but the curious thing, when William Lindsay Gresham wrote this novel, psychoanalysis came to America later than Europe. So it was still considered, and there are noirs, several noirs where the villain is a psychoanalyst. One of them by Preminger, Whirlpool, and who has a device to record his patients and all that. So Jesus in Mimic doesn't save anyone, and he's still doing a great job. sorry, personally, I haven't seen it much.
And with the geek and the pit, like the symbolism of circles and eyes, you know, that we see even in the windows at the Copacabana, the stage at the Copacabana. So I wonder if you could talk about that cyclical sort of nature of the story.
Well, the movie is a circle. The movie is a circle, and the idea would be he's laughing and crying at the end, and then he remembers dragging the corpse, and you start over. You know, so the circle and the arena of the geek chasing him through the movie. We knew and we felt, Kim and I, that what was going to be his ending could come or not as a surprise. It could work either way, but how he receives it was the really important thing. Because Gresham, when he died, he committed suicide in the same hotel room that he wrote the novel, Nightmare Alley. He had a professionally printed card in his pocket that read, "You'd rather die than face the truth," which I think is a very profound statement. And I thought, that's what happens at the end, the truth. For him, you know, noir is in some ways the equivalent in America of the Greek tragedy, but because they are both inexorable. You don't go to a noir and expect a happy ending, or you know it's coming. In the same way that you don't see a movie about Oedipus and say, "Oh, I hope he doesn't screw his mother." Doesn't kill his father. It's inexorable. And that's the thing when people say, "Oh, this or that is predictable in this or that movie." I go, there's a word called inexorable too that operates, and it's a choice. The beauty of noir is the tragedy comes from the character's decisions, not from the gods. Basically, it's a genre in which the gods are absent, you know, and that's why I have the little baby sort of floating and watching everything. I like the little baby. It looks like me in a beach with Betsy. When I got to the beach,
I read that you didn't want this movie to be an artifact to noir film, sort of like an homage only, that you really wanted to dig deeper into, you know, the darker corners of the genre. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, look, today Martin Scorsese published an incredible, beautiful piece on the LA Times about the movie. And the way he says it is exactly the way we want it. He talks about how the anxiety and weight that happened in the past echoes the one that is happening right now. I didn't want to make an artifact. I wanted to make a movie about today. A movie in which we see a really anxious blurring of the truth and the lies, populist discourse that tells us what we want to hear from politicians, from leaders, from ourselves. We curate our reality to create an echo chamber. We curate our reality to listen and read and watch only what we already believe. So that's an impossible way to get coordinates as to reality and the world. It's what Pete calls shy. You know, and at the same time, the infinite and instant capacity, we have to be cruel to each other, which seems to be almost a characteristic. And I think that intelligence has been supplanted by cynicism in many ways. And that's why I said in Shape of Water, emotion is the new punk. Because if you are emotional and attached and caring, it's an easy way to look like a sap, but I don't give a fuck. Somebody said, well, but this movie is cynical. I said, no, it's disillusioned. There's a big difference, you know? They don't mean the same. I learned both fucking words. This is tragic and disillusioned, but never cynical. It is just the moment we're in and the moment they were and there, in between two wars, right? They just came out of one war and the madness of going straight into the next. I think that we are in a crucial moment right now in which empathy and compassion and seeing each other is the only way out. And it's not so much watching each other, which we seem to do very well. It's watching over each other. Very big difference.
In the last shot of the film, I think that to me is very powerful. That disillusionment in Bradley's eyes, and I wonder, he's an amazing actor, and this one he's really particularly great. So I wonder how was, the execution of that final moment.
Well, look, I think it's his best performance. I really do. And we became so enmeshed with each other that we were like Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger in Twins. We don't look alike, but we're the same guy. And I'm on the shallow end of the DNA. And I saw this guy as a brother, and we knew when the take was real. We knew. And he is absolutely strictly to the truth. If it's not the real emotion, if it's not the real moment, there are no choices. And I started to shoot different because of that. And we talked about that final scene because the whole movie is a prologue to that scene. The reason to make the movie is the final moment. And that's the reason for the movie and for the story. And we said, don't worry, we'll cut that trailer in two, we'll cover Tim Blake Nelson, we need to do it 20 times. In 20 different days, we'll do it again and again until we get it. And we will prepare so meticulously that we will have no doubt. And then all of a sudden, without any preparation, my partner Miles comes in and says, we have hurricane level winds, they're gonna blow the tents on the carnival. The only scene that we can do is the last scene, because I can bring Tim Blake Nelson from Toronto, or we lose the day. And Bradley, Miles and I were producing, and Bradley said, let's do it. What is the worst that can happen? And basically the first complete take that we did is what is in the screen. Yeah. And it's because we were so close. And look, what I love, and a big difference for me, and an important one, is that it's not just despair, it's not just that he falls. There's also, he's a character that is a very difficult character to follow and to write and to shoot and to act, because he doesn't change until the end. The last 30 minutes are the beginning of his fall and then the precipice. But when he gets found out, which he says to Lilith, we all want to be found out. When he gets found out, one of the things that Bradley plays brilliantly is relief. It's like a killer or a thief that when they're found out, it's like son of Sam opened the door and said, what took you so long? Basically, and there's a relief. He doesn't have to pretend anymore, because he is to all the people, and that was the importance of Bradley being the character too. To everybody, he's a maybe, And I try for the audience to see him like a maybe, because I open with Bradley Cooper dragging out corpse, and that should give you a little question mark to carry through the movie. And I always construct these characters in reverse. When you're starting to understand them, they're doing the worst things they can do. It can be, that's an interesting construction. Devil's Backbone, Noriega is like a twin brother for Bradley. Marisa Paredes in that movie describes him as the prince without a kingdom, the man without love. That's this guy.
The scene when we first see him enter Lilith's office, I think is just exquisitely realized, in terms of execution, but just the dynamic between them and the choreography, the sort of war and battle that they have. I wonder if you could talk about writing that and bringing it to life.
Look, this movie demanded different distillation of many, many tools. For me, is without a doubt the most difficult movie I've executed. In terms of my work, I'm the proudest of it than any other. It requires real precision, and Kim and I talked about how can we change the tone of the movie when the city comes into play. Obviously, there's a massive visual change, and we can talk about it when they don't give us more than fucking 25 minutes. But in terms of the dramaturgy, we decided to make a few, like every time he meets Lilith, it's almost like a small play. and it has, the rhythm is dictated by the dialogue. And we didn't want to do dialogue that sounded like a pastiche of period. We wanted the same elegance and classical dialogue. Was she beautiful? Your mother, to me, you know, or you could have not dreamed. And, you know, the rhythm of them is like a ping pong, and that's the analysis session. The first time they meet, he opens the door and reveals a whole world of controlled beauty, full of hidden things, which is her office, and she's standing there like an exclamation mark in black at the end of and she says, haven't you heard we are at war? and then proceeds to be a matter of, sometimes Bradley is big on the foreground and she's small in the back. Sometimes Bradley is on top and she is sitting. Then she changes the scale and he looks smaller, and then she is in the foreground, and it's basically a balance of, there's a moment, one of the proudest moments is when she is listening to him say, do you have a safe? And then she gets up and the camera rises with her, as if she was Godzilla, going to destroy a building, and she rises above him, who's sitting in the desk, and it's such a great change of balance of power. And we pepper things that you don't see the first time in the movie, like when he says I don't drink, she places the glass exactly in the same position, and she's gonna place it when he finally tastes the alcohol. And there's a lot of that. Bradley eats the same way when he's rich and when he had no money. Gesturally, a lot of times you shoot Bradley from behind. We don't see his face, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, Kate Blanchett was born to play noir.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes.
And this performance is, you know, on her best for sure.
As they say in Mexico, she forks it.
What was your direction for her? You know, or was she a natural at this sort of movement?
Well, we developed a whole noir TV series about 4 years or 5 years ago. I wrote it for her. I developed it for her. It was called Nutshell Murders, and it didn't happen, but I stayed with her in mind for a period movie, and then we wrote this part for her. We wrote it specially for her. And if she hadn't done it, I don't know what, I would have gone and done something else. I said to Bradley, King Kong, I better get you your Godzilla, because they have to be, it's a duel to watch. And what I said to Kate, obviously, I didn't want it to be a character that was one thing. It was many things. There's a lot of emotion in her eyes. I said, you should stay controlled in the body, but your eyes should be brimming with tears or anger or deception, you know? And I asked her to move really, really controlled in her office. This is her office. This is her turf. And she should move like an alpha predator in a hill that is controlled by the big tiger or the big lion. And she moved she said, like a feline. I said, yes. Really, like you're measuring this guy, and you're gonna take him because, and the backstory we have, which is hinted at, we had a big speech, and Kate said, can I not say it? And I said, yeah, fuck that. because it was all of a sudden, it was Columbo. You know, I think that, you know, if you didn't understand it, that's fine. If you understood it, I applaud you, and popcorn's on me. But she is linked to Grindel through the scar and all this and all that, and we thought, isn't it nice if she sees this guy come in with the same bullshit that all the men have come into her life, and she says, enough, I'm taking this fucker down. You know, and she takes him down, you know?
The Office and in general the production of the kind of movie is incredible. You know, the amount of detail in terms of replicating period and, you know, sort of the turfs and in the fair and, you know, the Ferris wheel, all these things. Talk about, you know, the bringing them all together and sort of the detail that you want with this.
It's exceedingly complicated in a beautiful way, because to me, movies exist in two languages. One which we inherit from theater, which is character, drama, and structure. The other one is purely cinema, and that's textures, colors, movement, light, sound. And I learned on Mimic, precisely, that that's the realm where no one fucks with me. And I can lay it out perfectly. because I got a lot of interventions on Mimic from the producers, but nobody said anything about how to light it or how to move the camera or what colors were in play. And I said, from now on, I'm writing with light, shape, color, design to tell the stories. So everything you see, and I call it eye protein instead of eye candy, because it's nutritional. And it's the story and the character. So we can dismantle one day, not today, but believe me, we'll do more of this, and we can dismantle every scene. And I can take you through the big gestures. The carnival is alive and fallible and human and dirty, because the carnival is honestly dishonest. The city is the opposite, but we'll go through that. The carnival was very much influenced by the realist painters of American school that was birthed at the same time than the hard-boiled literature. So Thomas Hart Benton, Grant Wood, Andrew Wyeth, et cetera, et cetera. And then for the city, it was Edward Hopper with all his deco lines suffocating. So what happens is the carnival was all skies, a lot of skies. We frame a lot of skies. We almost are never in the exterior in the city. And when we do, there are buildings in front of the sky. There's never a beautiful sky in the city. The carnival is mud, steam, wetness, tents that move and breathe like a heart or a lung, and red over red over red, right? And in the city, there's no red except for Molly's dress, the Salvation Army, and minimal details, elevator, button, whatever, but all the life, all the red is out of the city. And the city has the illusion of gold, blacks, blues, greens, and the shapes that we already discussed, the lines. And sound-wise, the carnival, a moment of silence in the carnival is 20 tracks. People screaming, the distant barking, the distant rifles from the shooting gallery, blah, blah, blah. In the city, it's like a tomb. Nothing, just a low frequency. And when they open and close the doors, if you watch it again, they go like if they were in the Nostromo in a spaceship to suffocate. And we have a distant bell when he says, "I'll pick you up at 7, blah, blah, blah." When you hear the distant bell, but it's and traffic. But it's a really interesting experiment because I think if you follow the movie and you remove the dialogue, you could still follow the movie.
We talked about Dan before, but I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on what you wanted with him this time, and your sort of affection for the darkness and how far you can push it in. Perhaps a bit more in black and white when you transform it into this version.
Well, I think that the important thing when Dan and I, when we started working, I show him painters. I almost never show films to my DPs. I say, the only time I've shown a film was to Guillermo Navarro in Kronos. I showed him The Godfather, and he goes, good luck. No, but Guillermo said the key for me. One concept that makes absolute sense and guides everything I do. He said, everything is one thing. He said to me, if you give me a shitty room, I'll light a shitty room. And if standing in that shitty room, there's a shitty piece of wardrobe, I'll light a shitty piece of wardrobe. And the frame will be shit. He said, but if you give me a nice room, and I light it nice, and there's somebody with the wardrobe that congeals the idea and reinforces the narrative, then we have a beautiful frame. So when people say great cinematography, they're saying great production design, great blah, blah. It's a table with 4 legs. And the director's work, 50% is symphonic. We are conducting those things in order for them to make ebb and flow, transport you. The camera moves the way I dictate it moves, with the lens I dictate it moves, but it's a collaboration with key people that already did a lot of groundwork. So, for example, you were talking about the carnival, the minute details in the movie. We had to research the paper bags for the popcorn. We had to research the prices on the stalls. We had to get originals and then reproduce them exactly in the same way. To fasten the tents, we used a correct fastening harness from 1930s and reproduced it in brass and leather. When you go to the city, I bought $10,000 in props for the city, which I now have in my garage. What a horrible thing. But I bought all the money that was reproduced in the film, all the change, all the pamphlets, a couple of Lilith's lamps, blah, blah, blah. Because I want to know. I need to know the shapes, I need to know the color, blah, and you orchestrate this. And then Laustron, I start with a thing I call the submarine, which I'm starting right now for my next project in March. It's 2-3 guys, 2-3 concept designers, and we go deep for 6-7 months. And then we bring in the heads of department. I just did animation with 4 great designers that I met on the internet, and they worked from Zoom, and another 4 designers from everywhere, Mexico, Denmark, and the submarine is the most pleasant part of the process, because everything is possible, nothing is budgetable.
I wanted to ask you before we wrap about this phrase of we are desperate to be seen, desperate to be found out, and to me that speaks a lot about filmmaking and movies or watching movies, right? Recognizing yourself in what you see and what you make. I wonder what that phrase spoke to you when you decided to make it so crucial.
If you see, it's the same phrase than Shape of Water. When she says he sees me for who I am, he doesn't see what I'm lacking. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. I mean, look. The entire artistic endeavor is how we look at things. The entirety of the history of art is the gaze, the way we look. That's why you can go and talk about an art was trying to be photographic or realistic, and then how after the camera comes, you explode into impressionism and symbolism. Because it's not important that it looks real, it's important that it feels a certain way. And you can go through the sham sign in the urinal, Dadaism, surrealism, where the way you juxtapose a lobster with a telephone is the act, the artistic act. You can go all the way to pop with Andy Warhol saying, this Campbell soup, if you look at it the right way, the way I'm looking at it, and I'm gonna attempt that, you'll see the design lines and you'll find it to be interesting. And that's our job. Our job is to show people the world the way we look at it. And the greatest blessing any of us can have in our life is to be seen and to be heard. And I think that we all carry that desperation. And that's the charlatans use that to read us and give us what we need. That's the act of spiritualism, politics, is the most horrible hook is I'll tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. And that's a big difference. And that big difference is the one that scares me the most in the world right now.
Thank you so much, Guillermo.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I will stay a long time, but we have a 10 o'clock show. Thank you.
Huh?